Forever linked by coincidence, I asked if you liked me too, but by graduation I was left with only what-ifs. Before I ever knew you were my first love, I found you in my social media posts and dreams. Will fate ever bring us back together? This is it, this is the story. Untold and raw, my honest feelings about this man and everything that happened. I will not reveal too many details, just in case some crazy chance allows him to find this and connect it to me. If you do, please come back or at least admit to me that you liked me too. I first saw my first love in a social media post, and I did not know who he was at the time. I would later find out that after meeting him, I had a video I recorded a few years before with him in the background. I did not know who he was, and the video was for something completely different. So yes, right from the start, I thought our connection was random and selective. I am telling you, throughout our entire story, we had so many coincidences, moments that seemed fake as if they belonged in movies. Things that should not have happened but did. It was like gravity, magnets pulling us back to each other with every push. When I officially met him, I did not recognize him at first. It was middle school and we had 3 classes together in succession. I began paying attention to him in one of our classes where he sat behind me. Every day he would ask for a piece of paper and I obliged. Honestly, I was a pushover, and besides, it did not hurt to give him what he asked for. That was the catalyst, the spark that initiated everything. Paper after paper, our relationship formed. Suddenly he was everywhere. In the hallways, around the corner, sitting in a class that I happened to pass by where he was positioned perfectly to make eye contact with me. I am telling you, he was everywhere. I saw him too often for it to be mere coincidence, and I do not think he was doing it purposely that year, not yet. It was just the universe doing its work, perhaps God himself. I wonder if he thought it was strange how frequently we saw each other. In one of our other classes together, I sat in a rather poor seat. I did not know anyone at the time, so I just picked randomly. A few days later, I noticed a girl I knew from another class. The seat next to her was wide open, so I decided to take a chance. I stood up, gripped the strap of my backpack, and walked over to that spot. This became the seat I remained in for the rest of the year, and she turned out to be my best friend. This is difficult for me to discuss. Coincidentally, I unknowingly occupied my first love's spot. He did not say anything, however, choosing to sit in front of us instead, another event that solidified our current outcomes. Now in 2 classes I engaged with him, and suddenly he was always around me in our 3rd class. 3 classes of talking, laughing, and bickering that I could never get enough of. He was the type of guy everyone liked to be around, and I assumed I would not be speaking with him much. He seemed just another popular guy who would ignore me, but he did not. I am telling you, it was an unnaturally strong push in a good way. At the time, it was nice knowing my classes would not be boring with him in them. He was a source of entertainment, something pleasant to observe. Soon enough, a friendship formed, and I wanted him to like me. He teased me a lot, not bullying, in a playful manner. It was the sort of silly banter where I wrote too loudly or I scolded him for drawing a very embarrassing picture of himself on my worksheet, which I had to turn in, might I add. He insisted I keep it that way and not erase it, so I did not. The first class we shared together was genuinely one of the best, and he made it that way. Our teacher assigned us groups which were permanent for the entire year, and he was in mine. I was thrilled, primarily because he was funny and smart. I feared embarrassing myself, accidentally making a mistake or something. Even despite the challenges we faced in that class, he never made me feel bad or stupid. Our group was foolish and hilarious, and I do not thank God enough for that privilege. I will never forget that day when his friend claimed he needed a girlfriend and they both looked over at me. "You should date him," said one, "and you definitely should," he added. I laughed and brushed them off, not without listening to a million reasons from both why he was such a catch. I already knew that, just typical jokes from teenage boys, the usual. At this point in our story, I had developed a crush on him. It was something small, I had experienced them before. He was cute and funny, could you really blame me? One day, however, everything changed too quickly for my liking. A crush transformed into a strong like, a terrifying like. This day is etched in my mind, I remember it vividly. It was the morning of our first period. I was standing in class and talking with my friend. The strap of my backpack dug into my right shoulder, my hand hung loosely around it. Chatter filled the background and everything felt normal. I stood by the entrance of the door. One second I was standing and the next I was falling. I looked outside and there he was. He was walking toward me, a friend on either side. He was just laughing, just talking. There was nothing significantly different about him, but suddenly everything altered. The loud voices in the classroom faded and my peripheral vision blurred. All I could see in that moment was him. I did not notice anything or anyone else. My hearing dulled. Time slowed as he walked slow and steady while I analyzed him. Was he always that beautiful, handsome and vibrant? Had his smile always been this captivating, his aura so prominent? Something changed in how I perceived him. In that moment he became perfect to me. My breath hitched and I have not been able to hear clearly since. I will never forget it, I cannot. Every joke he made and every laugh that spilled from my lips he watched. It was as if he wanted to ensure I found him absolutely hilarious, like he was seeking approval. Another peculiar thing he did was purposefully mispronounce my name in a funny way that made me laugh. My name was somewhat difficult to pronounce, so he evidently enjoyed that fantasy. Strangely enough, it made me love my name even more. Now here is the crazy part, that otherworldly experience that does not seem real. One day, while listening to music and walking obliviously, the song played a line that called out my name, and suddenly he passed by me. And guess what he did? He called out my name right as the song played the line. I was also wearing headphones, so he could not have heard the song. Once again, another incident that happened that does not feel real. Coincidence? At that point, I was convincing myself it was just that, but there was no way. We were growing closer by the day, and others began to notice. Random guys were asking if I liked him, even one of my close friends who was convinced he liked me. I did not see it, but I hoped for it. They claimed he was always near me, wanting to talk only to me, trying to make me laugh. They said, "You follow her everywhere." It was too good to be true. I could not believe it. This boy was a dream. I swear he was crafted from a movie. Created by God's will and love, I could tell that he was made with thought. Now everyone believed he liked me, but I was unaware of that at the time. I had a feeling, a hope that he did. This had to be the work of the world, the universe repeatedly uniting us. I will admit I dropped hints, subtle signs that made it known, but only if you looked closely. I cannot disclose all our interactions. I am already paranoid about posting this. Just know that coincidences would not adequately describe what occurred between us. It was the end of the year, the last day of the semester. I was fully prepared to absorb every moment of that last class I shared with him, knowing I would not see him for a while after that. I needed to take a final exam, but unfortunately I had to leave early. I rushed to class and took that exam as quickly as I could. I was disheartened I would not even have the opportunity to enjoy his presence. I finished the exam, and for a solid 10 minutes I sat there staring ahead. After this I would leave, and after this I would not see him again, which hurt. 10 minutes of sitting there in silence as I breathed in the last remaining air I would share with him. Eventually I stood up, turned in my exam, and walked towards the door. I felt about 30 pairs of eyes on me, but only one mattered. Only one gaze burned into me, and I knew to whom it belonged. I reached the door, opened it, and walked out, finally able to look behind me. There he was, staring directly at me. Let me just say something, and I will never be able to stop discussing it. He had the most intense and striking eyes I have ever seen. Like a hawk, they lowered and studied me. But when he laughed, they shined brighter than the stars we share. Every single time this man looked at me, I felt pinned. And that is what happened. When I turned around, we made eye contact, and I froze. His eyes conveyed so many things, but for some reason they looked sad. It broke me a little. It did not make leaving any easier. I smiled at him, the same smile I had shared with him a million times, and I left. It felt like I was leaving something behind. When we returned from break, nothing was the same. Everything felt particularly different now. It felt as if I were losing him. He acted differently in a way, the same way, but his eyes held a new emotion I could not quite identify. I could not lose my source of happiness. He was that for me. I know that is not normal or wise, but in a way he helped me through a dark time. His popularity had its consequences, and my insecurities did not help. I did not go a day without laughing or smiling. Genuinely, life could not have been better. He was never rude to me, not like a typical popular guy anyway. Our dynamic was peculiar. I think everyone thought that. A shy, introverted girl and a talkative, popular kid, we certainly attracted some attention. He complimented me frequently, asserting I was smart or clever. He even laughed and assured me I was very good at drawing when he caught me doodling, which I quickly tried to cover with my arm, blushing furiously. Always near me, willingly and unwillingly, he paid attention to me. I say this, and others will too, this kid always chose me. He wanted to converse with someone. If he required a favor, he would approach me. I felt as if he depended on me for certain aspects, and it was kind of an honor. I am telling you, he had others to whom he could turn, but he did not. I was the first choice, a willing candidate. You know that theory that teachers can sense when their students like one another? Well, I think one of our teachers picked up on it. One day she assigned new seats, and by chance she placed me and my first love next to each other. I remember being so incredibly excited I wanted to cheer. Just he and I, shoulder to shoulder, an excuse to have him to myself. Conveniently, we sat next to each other for the rest of the year. Some teachers are great. I feel crazy every time I say this, but please believe me. I was always near this kid. It felt like the universe coordinated every situation to ensure he was close to me. I saw him in places I should not have and talked to him in fortuitous circumstances. It was no longer coincidence, it was fate. My friend often sat near us, so we would chat. She would ask if I had any crushes, to which I nervously replied no. She inquired several times, and every time he would become silent. Suddenly, he focused intensely on his schoolwork, and he was never quiet. I think one time she even called him out on it. One day she said the one thing I dreaded. She flat out asked if he liked me. My eyes widened and my heart dropped. She had no idea I liked him, and honestly I was furious. Now I had to hear the hurtful "you, I would never like her." I bit my lip and waited for his response. His face turned red and he laughed. Why does everyone keep asking that? I paused, confused. What did he mean by everyone keeps asking? Everyone. Honestly, I was shocked because now this was confirmation that what I was seeing was not just my imagination. He gave everyone enough signs to make them question him, signs of a crush. I did not say anything, but he looked caught. His eyes darted around, laughing nervously. That cool and composed demeanor cracked. He ultimately denied it, simply saying, "I do not." Do not. No way did she actually call him out. This entire scene unfolded before me and I had not even spoken a word. She insisted, "I have seen the way you look at her." Another shocked expression from me. She continued to press him. "You treat her differently than the others," he responded. "I treat everyone like this." I will admit that was true, but perhaps I was blind too. He settled on a no and she finally let go. I left the class feeling two things. I could not believe he rejected me and he might actually like me. Valentine's Day was approaching, which excited me. Maybe he would make a move or perhaps not. I had to hold on to some hope, albeit doubtful. I could go on and on about my first love. I already am. I just need to talk about it to express these feelings. Proof that it was real because my friends are tired of hearing his name. He also unwillingly had very bold friends, the kind who did not hold back when sharing their opinions. Let's just say that hearing his friends say we would be cute together was nice, but not when one mentions how cute our kids would be. These friends would also fill me in on information about my first love, including the classic "he likes you." It is hard to believe teenage boys, but hey, it is nice to hear. At this point, I am heavily convinced he likes me back. All these signs, people flat out telling me. And not to come across as delusional, you probably think I am, but I do have a great intuition. That is why when Valentine's Day arrived, I was certain something was going to happen. Something did indeed happen that day, but it was not great. The day was enjoyable, I had fun, and even if nothing significant transpired, it was still a better Valentine's Day than the previous year. However, toward the end of the day, he asked me a question. I cannot quite recall the conversation, but he asked if he had ever made me cry. Oddly, I responded no because he had not. We all went home, it was midnight. I do not know why, but I did it. I cried over him. That night, I unironically broke that promise and finally admitted to myself that I think I love him. Love is a strong word, I agree. But I do not know what else to call this feeling because I have felt it for 7 years. Everything was coming to an end and I did not realize it at the time. All the teasing and lingering gazes, laughs and smiles vanished. I will not disclose why, but abruptly we were separated. I did not see him for a year. Ironically, that scene in Twilight, New Moon, when Bella waits in that chair for all those months collecting dust, rings very true. I will not lie, that year was difficult. An entire year without him. That year I admitted to myself that I loved him, though not to him, obviously. The feelings did not fade, those eyes remained etched in my mind. This is the crucial part of the story. I say that the beginning was me pleading my case, but these next few years would serve as the evidence. After a year without him, without communication or interaction, it was high school. Love does not vanish, he was fresh in my mind. I was stuck in a situation where I had 0 classes with him, and I could not have felt more devastated. I was not even sure if he attended the same school, but I held on to hope. That first week of school involved me searching for him in a crowd, trying to find that flickering candle in a dark room, until I spotted it, flickering nearby as if caught in a breeze. I saw him. I was relieved because even if we had no reason to interact, he was present. We locked eyes for a moment before he was swept away by his friends. That year, I expected our friendship to have ended as we had officially separated. However, this became the year I missed the most. Here is the thing, every day at school I saw him. Every corner I turned, down the hallways, beneath the staircases, we noticed each other. There was no reason to interact, yet I had never felt closer to him during those moments. With each passing day, his appearances became more frequent. My friend told me there was no way it was unintentional, and she was right. My days now revolved around seeing his face, and for that entire year I was subject to his gaze, that look. Every day I left class, we would share a long moment of eye contact, just staring at each other before one of us had to leave. That's when I started to discern the effort he was beginning to put in. He searched for me until he found me, then never looked away. I always wondered what was so significant about him. Why was I so smitten and entranced? I gradually realized it was simply because it was him. The dreams began occurring every week, maybe 7 times a night. I dreamt of him. Each dream was special, and in each dream he gave me what I wanted him. This kid never left my mind. Even sleep could not release me from his intense gaze. My subconscious was in overdrive, and those meaningful interactions we had did not help. As if he were sneaking into my vision every day, he decided to invade my mind as well. He found his way back into my life, and that entire year was perplexing. Previously, it felt like I was the one pursuing him, but now it was him who sought me out everywhere he could. I had no classes with him, yet I had never seen him more often than I did then. At this point, I wanted to move on. I was frightened by this feeling, the way my heart raced when I would pass him in the hallway and he would stare at me unblinking with those eyes. Every time my friend and I passed him and his group of friends, they would grow quiet and glance back at you, then at me. We did not know how to interpret it. Each time it occurred felt surreal. One time I was walking behind him and his friends. One of them whispered something in his ear, and I had never seen him spin around so quickly with such urgency. He looked at me up and down and held that searing eye contact. I went to class feeling conflicted. That year I also met other guys, but none of them ever felt right. I could not form a connection because it felt like I was betraying him. Betraying my heart, as I did not want any of those boys. None of the relationships hurt me. What hurt me was watching him laugh without me. At one point I heard through the grapevine that a girl had a crush on him. Now I was convinced I would lose him. It turned out her crush was obvious to the entire school. They claimed she followed him around like a lost puppy. She was beautiful, everything I was not. I was prepared to accept my defeat when one day I was unluckily in the same room as her and he walked in. I cannot recall what he was doing there, but I remember he skipped past her and his eyes landed on me almost immediately. I stared back, a hint of that old smile I used to give him on my lips, and now his eyes began to communicate things. They spoke, "I see you, only you. I know how you feel about me, and I recognize that you see how I feel about you." It was true. Just like the first year I met him, we saw each other everywhere, even in places where he should not have been. Conveniently, he just appeared, and now his presence seemed to elude me. It turned into a game of pursuit as if I was being hunted. I had a few classes with his friends, and they began to watch me like hawks. Analyzing each glance I made at a guy, every smile and look, I always wondered if they would report back to him. Walking with a friend, I felt a familiar pair of eyes burning into the back of my head, and I always knew who they belonged to. One time, I even worked up the courage to look back, and there he was, unwavering. On Monday, my friend suddenly had something to tell me. Deep within my stomach, I sensed what it was. At this point, he knew I liked him. I was aware of that simply because I am so obvious. But this revelation was completely and utterly unexpected. I got home and called my friend where she delivered the news. She had a friend involved in the same sport as him, and her friend mentioned my name. There we learned that my first love did in fact like me. I collapsed onto my bed and wept with sadness because right after sharing that news, she said a relationship was not precisely what he wanted at that moment. How do you think it felt to finally hear those words, "I like you," only to be immediately shut down? I thought it was a lie that he wanted to focus on school and his sport. Turns out, even to this day, he has never had a girlfriend. After receiving that news, I decided to respect his decision. He also did not know I was aware of his crush on me, and that was how we left it. Neither of us had ever admitted to liking each other. One day, I was walking to class oblivious when I turned a corner and unexpectedly came face to face with him. Except he raised his arms and playfully scared me. I yelped and looked at him in disbelief because this was the first real face-to-face interaction we had in over a year. I shook my head and laughed as I scolded him. He smiled, that warm, honey-like smile, and walked away with mischief in his eyes. What the hell was that? My friend and I now had an advantage, an inside man. Her friend now had intel on his feelings toward me, which were consistently the same things. I like her, she's cute, she's funny, and I like her. These were all sentiments I never believed would arise. That the guy I liked felt the same way. Shortly after these events, our school hosted a dance. Both my friend and I attended, and it turned out he did too. Throughout the entire night, he stared at me. That longing look of desire, yet something clearly held him back. I am serious, he stared at me the entire night. At one point, I turned around, facing away from him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him say something to his friend and subtly point directly at me. They all looked. "Dude, he just pointed you out," my friend said. "Holy shit, he did." He then began texting me again, just like old times, asking questions or doing little things to make me laugh. Every time he saw me at school, he would pull that funny expression that always made me laugh before and later ask if I thought it was amusing. This continued day after day. We talked and laughed, saying everything but the obvious. We ended that year with two things. He wanted to tell me something, and I had unexpectedly acquired a boyfriend who was not him. I will keep this part brief because it honestly does not matter. Later that same year, I began seeing a guy who soon became my first boyfriend. It turned out he was a jerk, and I was thankful to be rid of him a few years later. At first, I believed I no longer loved my first love. It was all a lie that I kept to myself in guilt. Throughout that entire relationship, I was still in love with my first love, thinking about him, dreaming of him. I mention this because I entered that relationship so swiftly that I did not allow myself the opportunity to move on. I still have not. I do not feel bad because he treated me poorly, and all debts between us have been settled. He was not a good guy, which allows me to say this with ease. The funny thing is, I got over my ex in a month. So how on earth is the guy I dated easily forgettable, while my first love, a man I have never even touched, remains imprinted in my mind? My first boyfriend was my first everything except for one thing: love. While in that relationship, my first love and I shared one more class together. It was the beginning of sophomore year, and on that first day of classes, I discovered I did not have any classes with him. It was a disappointment I kept to myself. The next day, I rushed to class in a hurry, and when I walked in, I caught sight of him. We locked eyes, and I am sure I looked incredibly surprised. I shared that final class with him, one last opportunity to talk, one last chance to laugh, smile, and tease. Even then, knowing we could not go beyond mere glances, it felt as if we could not stop. He certainly could not, he just could not cease staring, pressing in on me. The rest of my high school years passed now, for good. After sophomore year, I never spoke to him again. My ex broke up with me, and as I went to the gas station for some sympathetic snacks, I noticed a car pull in and my first love stepped out of it. I do not know how I feel about this. Graduation day became the last time I saw him as he walked across that stage. I tried to ignore the aching sensation in my heart. He looked all grown up, no longer the boy I fell for at 13, but the man I loved several years later. I knew after high school I would not see him again. Now I am here writing this because I keep pondering the what-ifs. Does it ever stop? Because right now, after all of this, reliving our story every waking minute of my life, I do not think I can cope. I cannot live without him. The thought devastates me, plunging me into a state of sorrow I never knew existed. I cannot continue like this. I cannot risk getting married to someone who is not him. I will not enter another relationship until I am over him or if it is with him. Some troubling part of me believes it will happen, that in the future we will bump into each other and reunite. I just seek confirmation from God to let me know that he will be mine in due time. That is something I can live with, a life punctuated by being struck by the love bug after a fresh dream of him. I do not believe I can physically exist in a life without him now. A piece of me has been missing for a long time and it has always been with him. I just needed to share this story somewhere. I needed proof that it was real. I apologize if this seems excessive, and if you have any opinions or comments, I would appreciate them. I felt it essential to unload this weight. Story 2. My girlfriend seems to think having best friends of the opposite gender is normal, while I struggle with my insecurities. I know my own boundaries, she says, but when I needed her to plan my birthday, she simply asked, "Where do you want to go?" Am I overthinking or just losing my grip? I have no idea if I am overly insecure because this is my first relationship or if it is normal. I apologize if my writing is unclear or confusing. I just needed a place to express my problems. I dislike it, but have accepted that my girlfriend initially portrayed herself as an introverted person who did not talk much to others, only to discover the hard way that she had numerous guys chatting with her regularly. We established some standard boundaries at the beginning, and she initially agreed to them. For example, no meeting members of the opposite gender one-on-one, stopping communication with individuals of the opposite gender who previously showed interest, and not sharing too much of her personal life with others, such as mentioning her days off to men who always tried to ask her out. Additionally, she should not try to get close to new people of the opposite gender. The first 2 to 3 months were generally okay. There were certain things I disliked, but they were resolved after I raised them a few times. For instance, at the beginning, she was saying good morning and good night to multiple guys. I did not know this initially, but after finding out, I told her it was inappropriate and that she needed to stop. It took several reminders for her to finally communicate to those guys that she could no longer do that, but it eventually ceased, which made everything smooth again. However, guys from her past kept coming back like demons, which was unpleasant, but it did not happen much anymore after they were rejected. For my part, I cut off most of my female friends and stopped talking to them almost entirely because she did not approve of how they interacted with me in the past. I did not mind and simply ceased communication with them. We had a few intense arguments after that. There were occasions when she told me to my face that she wanted to break up. There were even instances when she stormed out of the house in the middle of the night, and I had to chase after her to bring her back home safely. It felt like a scene from a drama, but somehow I managed to salvage the relationship. Then after the fourth or fifth month, we had an argument, and she suddenly claimed that these boundaries were unnecessary. She felt that I was being possessive and controlling and that I was not allowing her to do what she wanted. She insisted that she knew her own boundaries and that there was no need for any to be established. I was obviously disappointed and angry. In the end, we almost broke up again, but I told her that I would accept her for who she was and hoped that she would not do anything wrong. During the 5th to 6th month, I discovered that she had suddenly become close to a few of her colleagues. I really disliked the fact that they were suddenly texting her so much and that she was responding promptly. I told her to tone it down. It was difficult for me to be okay with this after having established boundaries at the beginning of the relationship. However, after numerous arguments about it, I just gave up. I simply prayed that it would not happen too frequently and that she would manage herself. In the 6th to 7th month, it was approaching one of her colleagues' birthdays. He kept asking my girlfriend to take him out for dinner to celebrate, but she mentioned that I did not allow her to go out with anyone one-on-one. Initially, I questioned why she couldn't just say no instead of stating that it was me who did not allow her. Ultimately, I was just relieved that it did not happen, so I overlooked this issue. Then he asked to be given a headset. We had earlier agreed not to give gifts to anyone of the opposite gender, so I expected her to deny him. However, I later found out that she offered a cheaper headset and even suggested making a handmade card for him, which I really did not appreciate. In the end, nothing was given, but we argued about this anyway. Ultimately, I told her she better give me a gift that was better than anyone else's. I have always told her I do not need anything expensive, just something personal. A handcrafted item would be ideal. This month, my birthday finally arrived and I had been looking forward to it. It was the first time I had a special someone to celebrate my birthday with. I had hoped it would be a special and well-thought-out day. However, I discovered that she had not even planned anything, not even where to eat. After countless reminders from me that my birthday was approaching, she just did a quick Google search and asked if I wanted to go to a certain place. I agreed, but I felt quite sad inside. I had to make a reservation on my own just 2 to 3 days before my birthday. She gifted me a wallet without planning it in advance, and 1 to 2 weeks before my actual birthday, while we were out for lunch, she asked me what I wanted. I told her a wallet since mine had holes in it or something made by her would be nice. Coincidentally, there was a brand she liked in the mall we were at, so she bought me a wallet from there right away. Thus, the gift was not much of a surprise, but I did not mind because I was more eager for a card from her. For context, I treated her to a sushi meal costing 400-500, and I gifted her a PC setup worth 3,000 for her birthday. She was over at my place for the week leading up to my birthday, and I kept hinting that I was looking forward to the card she would write for me. However, in the end, she said she did not have time to make one. She claimed to be tired and busy, stating that there was no time for her to make a card for me. I was very upset and disappointed because I remembered she had made a handmade card for her colleague friend, but when it was my turn, I did not even have an opportunity. The birthday celebration was fine. We had some food and then we went home to our respective places. She recently went on a trip and initially told me she was only helping one female friend buy souvenirs and so on. I gave her some money and mentioned that she should buy some clothes for herself too. 2 to 3 days into the trip, I asked her if she had bought any clothes, and she told me no, saying she was saving her money for food and souvenirs. I told her there was no way she could spend all her money on food alone and offered to send her more if she needed it. However, she suddenly snapped at me, saying that I just did not understand. She insisted that if I did not know what I wanted, then I should stop asking and wait. Suddenly, I felt that she was planning to buy gifts for her male friends without telling me about it. I would not mind if she had been honest, but now that I feel she is hiding this from me, I feel exhausted, confused, and sad. I do not know if I am overthinking this entire situation or what. At the beginning of the relationship, a colleague of hers asked her out for dinner to celebrate. He was apparently a longtime friend, so I did not mind too much. I did not feel it was my place to intervene yet. I had also played a few games with him while she was present, so I was somewhat more willing. However, I later discovered he had other intentions. He tried to persuade my girlfriend to drink with him, knowing she could not handle alcohol, and even attempted to convince her to be with him instead because he was more successful and could provide a better life for her. This is what she told me. Unsurprisingly, I was fuming and told her how much I disliked this person and that she should stop talking to him. Of course, breaking it off was hard for her since they worked together, so I tried to understand her perspective and told her to avoid talking to him outside of work as much as possible. After 2 to 3 months, we did not interact with him as much, but I still found him frequently texting my girlfriend and trying to join us in games. I heard he was expressing his depression to other colleagues since my girlfriend had been distancing herself from him, she told me. This created distractions for her at work, and suddenly rumors began to circulate that he asked her out and was rejected, which led to his friends being unpleasant towards my girlfriend at work. She was relatively new while he had worked there for years. Months later, after not hearing about him much, he suddenly started pestering my girlfriend to invite him for games, saying he was lonely. I think this guy needs more help than I do, but who am I to judge, as I am writing on Reddit to seek advice. There is another guy who is a longtime friend of hers who texts her almost every day, morning, noon, and night. It frustrates me to hear the notification and see that it is him once again. It is almost obvious that this guy is into her in some way, but she insists otherwise. He constantly invites her to work with him even though she currently has a full-time job. I do not understand his problem. Even when my girlfriend and I went overseas together, this guy kept texting her nonstop and even invited her to work with him upon her return for some part-time job. Does he lack common decency? I cannot tell if he has nothing to do or if he is just a weirdo. The saddest part is that my girlfriend always insists that he means no harm, he is just a best friend. That is what best friends do. Recently, he traveled abroad and kept asking my girlfriend if she wanted anything from Vietnam or wherever he went. She mentioned this to me and told me she politely declined his offers. However, just 1 to 2 weeks ago, he returned and asked my girlfriend to meet up so he could give her some items. I do not know if I am too immature for finding this so annoying. It feels like he is trying to find all sorts of ways to get her to meet him so he can see her. In the end, I told her it was fine if he just wanted to give her snacks but no personal items. She abruptly scolded me, saying I was being controlling and possessive, claiming that this was just what normal friends do for each other. I was so taken aback that I did not care much about it anymore. At first, it was supposed to be a simple drop-off from a nearby mall, but then he insisted on going to her place to deliver it. I found this unnecessary, but I remained silent. The best part was when he suddenly was not free and requested to reschedule for another day. I told her that I could help her collect the items from him as I had a small pickup nearby, making it convenient for me. So she went to ask him if it would be okay for me to come and pick up whatever he wanted to give her. He initially tried to dodge the question and later claimed he was shy about meeting me. At this point, I was extremely frustrated and told her that I did not understand how a 29-year-old man who works in a show flat, which requires frequent interaction with people, could be shy about handing over a bag to a 24-year-old guy. She then snapped at me again, insisting I was being overly sensitive and that I simply did not want her to see her male best friend, claiming that I was overthinking this entire situation. I questioned her on why she was defending him and harshly scrutinizing me even though this was just a simple issue that had blown up into a major problem. Essentially, her reasoning for treating me harshly was that she had expectations for me while having none for others. She explicitly asked me not to have any expectations of her by stating that setting boundaries was unnecessary, yet she gets disappointed when I do not act as she desires. There is much more to tell, but I am tired at this point. If anyone has advice, please let me know what I should do or whether I am overthinking these issues and just need to take a step back. Story 3. My boyfriend stormed around, yelling I'm not fucking talking to you, after I accidentally elbowed him in my sleep. He drove off with my leg hanging out of the car after a heated argument, claiming he didn't know I was there. Am I stuck in a cycle of blame? I truly need some relationship advice. I feel as though I am stuck in a cycle of going around in circles with my boyfriend without any progress. I will explain what happened today for context, but our disagreements and arguments tend to follow a similar pattern, and I am unsure what to do moving forward. I understand that many individuals may quickly suggest the breakup solution, but I would prefer to try some healthy communication techniques before resorting to that if possible. Nevertheless, I am open to all advice. I often experience extremely distressing nightmares which can lead to me waking up in a panic. My boyfriend is aware of this. This morning, I woke up feeling upset and very anxious after a nightmare. My boyfriend got out of bed almost immediately after I woke up and appeared to be in a terrible mood. He was stomping around, throwing things down, and speaking to me in two-word sentences. I asked him what was wrong. He ignored me multiple times when I expressed that something seemed off and when I asked if he was upset about anything. On the fourth or fifth time, he finally told me that I had elbowed him in the face while I was asleep and that he was upset with me. He sounded angry, his tone was different from usual, and he glared at me while saying this, so I knew he was genuinely annoyed. I explained that I was asleep and did not remember doing that, and I mentioned that I had been having nightmares which may have caused me to lash out in my sleep. I thought we had resolved the issue since I acknowledged his feelings, apologized, and clarified that I had not intended to hurt him. However, he spent the remainder of the morning being annoyed at me, snapping at me over minor issues and speaking to me in an irritated tone. He barely looked at me all morning except to chastise me for things. When we arrived at my house about 30 minutes later, he was dropping me off in my car since his is broken. The conversation started again. He stated that he was upset because I had elbowed him in the face and now claimed that I had also kicked him twice during the night. I apologized and explained that I did not intend to do so because I was asleep and had not realized my actions. He accused me of not listening to him and grew increasingly irritated. I in turn became frustrated as I acknowledged that his annoyance at being elbowed in the face was reasonable, but that it was an accident, and I did not know what more to say other than sorry. He then said his problem was not with my elbowing him at all, but rather with my reaction to him informing me of it. He claimed that I dismissed his feelings by saying I was asleep and that I had interrupted him. I conceded that I understood why this was frustrating and apologized. I then told him that I did not appreciate how he became so angry, raised his voice, and stonewalled me before I had a chance to respond. Furthermore, I expressed how I felt wronged for being treated poorly throughout the morning over an accident. I admitted he had the right to feel upset about the situation, but that the manner in which he expressed that frustration towards me felt unjust, given that I had not meant to hurt him. Ultimately, the conversation deteriorated. He asserted that he had never raised his voice while telling me I had elbowed him, that I was the one shouting at him, that I was defensive, and that I was dismissing him. I apologized for hurting his feelings. He claimed I was not listening to him as usual, accused me of overreacting, and said I was not taking responsibility. I listened to all of this, clarified where I was unsure, and apologized once more for his hurt feelings. However, when I tried to express that I felt him stonewalling me, raising his voice, and getting excessively angry over an accident was unfair, I requested that he calm down a bit so that we could have an honest conversation and consider each other's viewpoints. He disregarded everything I mentioned about his behavior, continued to highlight my faults while denying that he was angry or raised his voice. I distinctly remembered him raising his voice before I had a chance to respond, yet he insisted that he only did so because I yelled at him, which I did not believe I had. Ultimately, I felt we were going around in circles and that he was not accepting my many apologies. He told me I was still not listening, even though I had patiently listened to every point and expressed my understanding. I felt powerless to change the situation as he became increasingly angry with me. In the end, I regretfully said that it was not fair to hold an accident against me since I did not intend to harm him. When he shouted at me for supposedly interrupting him and dismissing his feelings, I responded, "I was having terrible nightmares and hit you accidentally while I was asleep. I do not know what else to say." I then exited the car to go into my house. I acknowledged that I should have settled the conversation before leaving, but it was becoming increasingly heated, and I felt trapped without any resolution. He pursued me, grabbed my arm, and shouted, "Oh, so you can just walk away now because you are upset." I pulled my arm away and said, "Do not touch me like that," to which he replied, "Go F yourself." He attempted to return to my car, but I insisted he should not drive while so angry and told him to exit the vehicle, fearing that he might damage my car while in that emotional state. He tends to drive recklessly when upset. His workplace is a 10-minute walk from my home, so I did not leave him stranded. I felt justified in taking that stance since it is my car, and I did not believe he would treat it properly while in such a state. He then attempted to drive off after I repeatedly asked him to leave my car with me and walk to work. I got into the passenger seat with the door wide open and asked him for my keys. He drove off with my leg hanging out the door and no seat belt, then stalled the car so abruptly that I flew off the seat and hit my head against the windshield. I then had to reach over and physically retrieve my keys from the ignition while he fought against me, screaming, "Let me go to Fing work. Call the police if you must, but I am taking the car." Eventually, I got the keys back and asked him to leave. He yelled at me in the middle of the parking lot, accusing me of needing to calm down, insisting I never listened to him, and claiming I exacerbated the situation by interrupting him and dismissing his feelings. He branded me a hypocrite and accused me of employing double standards against him. I asked him not to yell at me, and he charged back at the car, prompting me to lock myself inside out of fear. He was pulling at the door while shouting at me. He then walked away, yelling, "I am not Fing talking to you, go F yourself." At that moment, I sat in the car crying while he screamed at me from outside, causing embarrassment with all the neighbors watching. He then texted me while walking away, claiming that I had yelled at him, did not listen to him, walked away from him, and that I was being hypocritical and applying double standards. I expressed that I was unsure about continuing the relationship due to his reckless behavior in driving off with me still in the car. He replied that he did not know I was in the car. I told him I was sorry for my part in escalating the issue, but I also made it clear that he should not yell, scream, or raise his voice at me either. He denied that he had done so, prompting me to comment that I did not appreciate the gaslighting. Now he is claiming that I am gaslighting and manipulating him. I acknowledge I have made mistakes in this situation. However, when we argue, I am consistently the one who bends over backward to apologize and strive to improve my behavior. In contrast, he simply asserts, "I never did that, you did," or responds with, "Well, I only did that because you did this." It feels like a constant deflection, which I have previously mentioned, only for him to deny it is true or fair to say. I feel as though I am trying to communicate with a brick wall. Regardless of what I say or do, even when I listen to him and express understanding while apologizing, he remains unsatisfied and continues to argue until I become upset, at which point he becomes angry with me for my distress. He accuses me of interrupting him, but this occurs because he does not listen to my point and returns to "you did this wrong" without acknowledging what I am attempting to express, even though I consistently validate his feelings. I am eager to establish healthy communication, but I am uncertain of what more I can do. We share a pleasant relationship, having been together for only a few months, and this is the first significant argument we have been unable to resolve, stemming from an accident that occurred while I was asleep. Aside from this issue, most of our relationship has been wonderful. Our arguments always seem to follow a similar pattern from my perspective. I acknowledge my mistakes, apologize, and express a desire to address what he identifies. But when I attempt to reciprocate, he claims he never did what I accused him of and insists it is unfair for me to say so, often accusing me of interrupting or dismissing his feelings. He refuses to even contemplate whether his behavior may contribute to the escalation, while I feel as though I am continually doing that. Even when I asked him to discuss this with his therapist, he declined, stating, "I have already worked on myself, now you need to work on yourself." When I raise this concern with him, he similarly asserts that it is untrue and claims he is the one putting in all the effort while I am the one causing issues and refusing to work on myself. He contends that he does not feel this way and accuses me of merely assuming it and getting myself upset. I genuinely do not know what actions to take. I feel as though my points are not being conveyed, regardless of how many different approaches I try. It feels like I am hitting a wall, but I love this man dearly, and I just want to establish a safe space to voice my concerns without the situation spiraling out of control. I apologize for the length of this message. How can I improve our communication? How can I help him recognize that he also does not communicate effectively without placing all the blame on me for my actions? How can I express my viewpoints without him perceiving it as a personal affront? Story 4. After 7 years, I thought I knew my husband, but he became a stranger overnight. "You need to show backbone," he said before hitting me, and later declared, "Why didn't your father pay for everything? On my wedding day, I was left alone, drowning in despair. How did I get here?" This represents my equivalent of shouting into the void and hoping that someone will hear me. I had been in a relationship, mostly a long-distance relationship with my then boyfriend, now dear husband, for at least 7 years. Pre-marriage era and discussions about marriage. There was some pressure from my parents to get married, and my dear husband insisted on informing them. I had hinted at it, but in Indian societies, being openly in a relationship is generally frowned upon. I had cautioned him that things would proceed quite rapidly once the parents were involved, but he insisted. As predicted, my parents wanted to speak with his mother as soon as possible, and he resisted. He wanted me to show some backbone and tell my parents not to pressure me. He had no clear plans moving forward. For me, it felt like a bait and switch. He repeatedly told me that he had informed his mother and that she had no desire to speak with me or my parents. Why would she? In a strictly patriarchal society, she probably believed she had to maintain her dignity. When I consistently asked for his mother's phone number, he kept stalling. It reached a point where he insulted my mother, which resulted in him physically assaulting me. In hindsight, that should have been the first warning sign. He attempted to act as if nothing significant had changed, but discussions about marriage continued. He agreed to provide me with his mother's phone number but warned me that she would be busy with her job. Eventually they spoke and we decided to meet. Due to my father's health issues, he could not fly from my hometown. He was recovering from a significant illness around the time of COVID. My dear husband expressed his understanding, and we devised an elaborate plan for his mother to visit us. My mother urged me to arrive a few days early so that we could tidy up our home. After my father's illness, the house had fallen into disrepair, for lack of a better term. He informed me that I needed to travel with them to my home so that his mother could get to know me better. He asserted that it was the right thing to do. He often has a tendency to present opinions as facts. Anyway, the discussions about marriage took place. He and his mother took offense at numerous things that should not have caused offense. They judged a lot. His mother especially mentioned a lack of etiquette. Since we come from a lower to middle-class family, I assumed this to be true. Perhaps we lacked etiquette. I felt self-conscious and believed this to be accurate. In hindsight, it was yet another instance where this family paraded opinions as facts. His mother has her own rules and opinions about how a guest should behave and how a host should act. She overdoes her performance as a host. It feels unnatural. One of her opinions is that help should not show their faces in front of the guests. They should remain confined to their rooms. Domestic help should eat only after the hosts have eaten, regardless of how long it takes. And of course, she needs to receive praise for her hosting abilities. Gold and wedding card incident. My dear husband and I had decided that we would bear all costs equally, and I reiterated this to my family. We agreed to proceed with only one wedding card. I communicated this to my family. However, the day before the wedding, I suddenly received a message from my husband that his family without him was coming to meet us. I had no idea why, and neither did he. Apparently, his mother expected us to exchange wedding cards. Why? This was another ritual that no one seemed to understand. I discovered this 2 years later. She made remarks about how disappointed she was doing this twice. No matter how much I explained, nothing changed. We were etiquetteless and we didn't even have a card to show for it. Where was my dear husband? Supporting his mother in claiming we lacked etiquette. Everything else was conveniently forgotten. Now regarding the cost-sharing aspect, I purchased all the gold. My family provided me with a bit of heirloom gold, some old, some new. Suddenly my dear husband began demanding to know why my father was so stingy as to not pay for anything. He was upset about the fact that I wanted to buy their flight tickets. Growing up, we were so poor that staying at a 5-star luxury resort felt like a dream, and his city is a beautiful place. I wanted a memorable vacation for all of us. I was happy and wanted to celebrate with them. He was very adamant about not inviting any of my friends, claiming he had no friends who would come. He did not understand that I had no one from my extended family attending. I wanted my friends around me. In hindsight, this was the second red flag. He got his way. His father's former professional colleagues showed up, but my friends could not. His mother acted as if she had covered all the expenses. I had already transferred a significant amount of money to my husband, yet it was never acknowledged. The day of marriage and post-marriage incident. My family was stranded at the hotel when the driver left. My husband insisted on not using Uber, which resulted in my family arriving late for the reception. 2 years later, his mother reproached me, claiming that her perfect day had been ruined. I was extremely exhausted after my family departed. Everyone left me alone. There was no conversation. I had to find my way to the bedroom by myself to take a bath. Initially, my husband didn't even help carry my suitcase upstairs. When I started to carry it myself, he called me dramatic. He wanted me to open my suitcase and take my toiletries in the hallway downstairs. I had no towel and broke down. I was utterly devastated. Have you ever felt completely alone in a crowd? I did not dare open the cupboards, which were stuffed with his mother's clothes, as I learned later. He later told me that he wanted to spend time with his family to show gratitude for all their arrangements. He didn't want to be perceived as the man who abandoned his family the moment he got married. Things worsened the next day. He made me pack his sister's bags because she was dragging her feet and needed to get organized. I complied even though I didn't want to. I really wanted to go to a cafe, but in my naivete, I thought I was being helpful. I believed that people would appreciate me if I did this for them. Later on, I accidentally discovered texts where his sister was repeatedly asking him to make me stop packing and folding for her. I felt incredibly embarrassed and hurt. I was a complete nuisance. Later, he suggested that his mother and sister come with us on our first outing together. He lied to them, claiming that I had agreed. I overheard this from the adjoining room. He made a show of asking me, and I told him never to do this again, asking for my opinion or permission when it was irrelevant. He had already made the decision. We had a pleasant family trip with the dog. It served as a means to continue expressing gratitude to them. I was asked to convey how thankful my family was to them. I did so because my family genuinely appreciated all the arrangements. Now for the unfortunate part. My mother fell seriously ill after my marriage to the extent that she could not dress herself. His mother raised a fuss about my family not calling her. You know how courtesy works in her mind, her opinions on etiquette. She expected a call from my extremely ill mother because apparently that is the norm. A week after the wedding, my husband's grandmother passed away. Guess what? I informed my mother so that she could offer her condolences despite her being so sick herself. My mother-in-law did not like this. She complained to my husband that I was revealing family secrets almost immediately. My goodness, my husband claims that he supported me for once but asked me to consult him before making such decisions.